JB here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Thursday, December 5th, 2024, about 8:57. Talk really quick about the markets, names I'm looking at, and go from there. Take a look at the S&P futures. Slightly in the red. It's S&P's been up 11 of the past 12 sessions. So what's been remarkable, I keep talking about these tight trading ranges. Yesterday was another tight trading range. The S&P closed up over 0.6%, but the trading range was only 0.48%. So the trading range of the day was actually lower than the actual closing high. So pretty remarkable stuff. The previous two sessions were 0.3% trading ranges. And then this is what a 56 closing high, all-time closing high of the year for the S&P yesterday. Just remarkable. So I've been saying it for pretty much, I've had it on repeat for the last 7 or 8 days, 610 on the SPY. I think that's the target here. And then once it gets there, I'll kind of look at things, reevaluate a little bit. One little concern, we're at the upper Bollinger Band I was talking about yesterday afternoon, 607.52. We closed at 607.66 and we're at 607.36 here in the pre-market. So that's something to watch. Maybe that provides some resistance here today. I actually put a new support resistance trend line on my SPY annotation, which is down at the 600 handle. So hopefully don't get that tested in the next couple days. But if we do find some pressure, that'd be a spot I'd be watching very carefully. All right, so that's the SPY. Yesterday, also, Fed Chair Powell did his little interview with Andrew Sorkin on the New York Times Deal Book Summit. A lot of headlines coming, some of them comical that I thought, some of his quotes. I actually didn't listen to it, but I'll talk about that in a second. But didn't really do much for markets. It was actually, we gapped higher, melted a little bit higher into the afternoon. Then when he came on to speak around 140, that's when we had just a little pull. Markets found a bid right away and just reversed. So, and of course, the big story: Bitcoin over 100,000. So anyway, that's that. Small caps didn't outperform yesterday. Actually found some weakness into the afternoon. Found a bounce, closed in the green over that 240 handle in IWM. One of these days, it'll start to get back on track towards that 250 spot. I think it'll hit at the end of the year. And that's that. So then just the overall stuff. And, I put this on the watch list. I put start rant, end rant. I mean, if you've listened to my rants or read some of the watch list over the last years, at least over the last decade, I'm not a gold bug, So when I look at gold, I always look at through the eyes or the goggles of someone who's not, thinks it's going to go lower, right? Just doesn't, the more I try and rationalize and come up with a bull case for it, it's just not something I can do. Which makes it difficult sometimes because when I look to make a trade, I'm going to get puts, right? And maybe it goes higher, and it has. If you do, it's moved since 2014. It's up quite a bit, right? But it's compounded growth rate, well, not its growth rate, but its gains over that time frame are like 20%. But anyway, so take that with a grain of salt. But it just yesterday was Fed Chair Powell saying that the U.S. dollar is not in competition with Bitcoin. Gold is, right? So here's the Fed chair of the most, the biggest economy of the world saying that gold and Bitcoin are in competition, right? And then this morning you have an analyst, and I don't have the CNBC Pro. I don't watch CNBC anymore. Well, sometimes I look at little clips, but I used to watch it back in the day. I don't watch anymore. So I don't have I don't subscribe to their CNBC Pro, but they talked about a Bernstein analyst saying that he sees Bitcoin taking over as a store of value, taking gold's place as a store of value, but it's going to take some time, right? And I think all this stuff, I'll have to find the links. I think I posted in the chat room when I did my bear case on gold back in 2014. I was talking about cryptocurrency being the possible, I wouldn't say the nail in the coffin, but something that's going to take away from the value of gold. And there's all these other arguments. And I don't have time to do a rant, but the finite supply of gold, but it's really not finite supply of gold, and also with the finite supply of crypto, Bitcoin, if you believe that's going to stay like that. But you take a look at gold, and it's like we're closer to making a base on Mars and all that stuff. And like how far reality is gold on some of these asteroids? Anyway, rants for other days. But so what, in a nutshell, and I put on the watch, don't be surprised if I add more crazy puts on gold, because I think, as I start to look into 2025, I think there's an opportunity for it to break under 2000. So I might look for some longer dated outcomes that might require some steel fingers or brass diamond hands, whatever you want to call it, so I can hold on to those. All right, so that's the gold. All right, offer rant. So first, I'll talk about Roku. Yeah, upset that I had those 80 calls that I got at like 29 cents on Monday. And then to see it gap up yesterday after the Needham comments, and then the Guggenheim comments on Monday, Wedbush comments, positive comments on Monday. But you got to stick with the plan, right? Could have went the other way, which is done over and over again, especially this year. But solid day, broke over 80, was up, I think it was up over 13%. Its most biggest gain in over like 16 months. Closed up nearly 10% at over $82. Closed some of the strikes that I added in the morning. Within an hour, they were both nearly a double or over a double on the December strikes. I'll continue to hold those. I said it in the chat room. It's like, let's ride now. Now I'm riding free. Now I'll hold on to those. And then I might look for weekly strikes now to play for upside if it finds support. I think it's set for a move for its gap fill. It has a gap fill back in February at 91. So I think that's the next target. I think it comes in the next couple of weeks. Uh, I don't know if all this chatter is like the aha moment and some of these folks who've been bearish the name and don't really, just think it's competitive. The competitive landscape is going to squash them. I think that maybe they're going to come to the realization that, hey, maybe this is not the case. Walmart just completed their acquisition of Vizio. It was a $2.3 billion acquisition. I have to look into their numbers. They did have platform revenue broken down in their 2023 earnings, but I haven't really looked apples for apples in regards to how percentage-wise of their monetization business versus their hardware business compared to Roku. But Roku's substantially ahead of them in regards to that aspect. So you have to think at some point, even if without the M&A, it starts to take off. Anyway, rants for other days, but really like Roku here. Unity Software, what a monster. Just like the S&P, it's up 11 of the past 12 sessions. I was talking about it yesterday. It was still down 37% year to date, but it's up 54% since the middle of November. I think it's November 18th. So it makes me a little more cautious about adding more strikes. I was looking at the 38s like last week. But I used yesterday's move to lock more of my 30s for nearly 400%. I might just nibble a couple because I think if it gets some more momentum, it might run. If it could break over 30, I think it might overshoot 34, 35. And you have that app loving, which continues to be just on a monster tear. And I'm not saying those are the similar companies. They're a little different, but they're still a niche that they have that I think bodes well for Unity. Or at least if you look at what app has done and what Unity, its last earnings, I think it deserves a higher multiple. So I really like Unity here, but I'll continue to be patient. Finally added Fiverr calls yesterday. When I say finally, I had the November strikes after its earnings. I was able to lock some in when it spiked for some profits to cover costs. And then, of course, it pulled back. And then it's been on a nice move. Consolidate those earnings and then off to the races. And, I was talking about it the day before. UBS upgraded the stock. Well, not upgrade, just raised their price target. And it soared 6%, despite them having a neutral rating and the price target being lower than where the stock was. And then yesterday, it just continued up nearly 3%. I think this heads over 40 in the coming days. And then I start looking, I'm like, wow, maybe this is 45, 50 in the coming weeks. So to me, it's a misunderstood story. I was looking this morning to try to do some due diligence, and I have to go back. I used to have the stats on how many gigs were wrapped around AI. This is like a year ago, and it used to list 45,000 gigs or 10,000 gigs. Now I started looking, and there's like 55,000 gigs just for cryptocurrency. How do I, white papers and do your, how to do YouTube and all that fun stuff. And I don't know, maybe there's hashtags and it's AI, crypto, or whatever. But to me, I think that's also another tailwind. There's a lot of tailwinds for them. And I think as a whole, a lot of what has changed over the years has been, the work from home or the automation part or the gig economy, right? And who thought that you'd be able to drive, get a ride in someone else's car using an app? I mean, that would be unheard of 15 years ago. Anyway, real like Fiverr here, not going to go on a rant. And then the wild card there with Fiverr is it's real near its all-time high record in regards to its short interest, over 20%. And the all-time record high on the short interest was only 2 weeks ago, which was 21%. So means I think there's a lot of air that can come out of the shorts. There's a lot of fuel for the fire if that continues to head to the upside. All right, a couple more names here in TravelZoo. It's almost like 4 sessions. I wouldn't say to the downside, but once it broke over 20, it seems like the sellers came and took some profits. Not on much volume. It looks like maybe it's a point here where I might look to get the calls finally. It seems like it has that pattern. Nice move to the upside, then a little consolidation, then the next leg, Really like this one into 2025 and listen to the rants. Same with TripAdvisor. The saying always goes, there's a lot of sayings, but you want to buy when it's cold and sell when it's piping hot or whatever. And right now, TripAdvisor is cold, and I think it's only a matter of time whether it's their next earnings call, or some kind of catalyst from rumors of more acquisitions, M&A, or whatever. I think it's going to happen at some point. So don't be surprised if I add some strikes into January. Square is knocking on the door of $100 here, hit 99.97 here in the pre-markets, pull back a little bit. Bitcoin's over 100,000. I think you have a lot of people now all of a sudden catching on because they're looking for ways to trade Bitcoin going higher, right? And of course, the major way was micro strategy, and then you look at Coinbase, and then you look at some of these other names that hold Bitcoin, the CLSKs, the Maras, the Riots. And then now it's like Square, and I think Square is like almost like the cleanest play, right? Because they're not 100% exposed to the price fluctuations of Bitcoin, but it's like an added benefit, right? I don't think any of that's baked in. So if it breaks over 100 here, I might look for some FOMO calls. Last couple here, SE finally over 17, closes at 117.41. I say 117. Another name, it's only a matter of time before this starts to break into the 120s, and then I think 130 is an easy target into 2025. I'll look for more strikes here. Unfortunately, I got those calls into earnings or after earnings, and then the stock just fizzled. But now it's back to life. I think it heads higher. Not much to add here on Teladoc. Disappointing after the little spike yesterday morning. Jeffries upgrade the stock. Still like that one for upside. Same with JOBY. JOBY had news this morning. Just more stuff. JOBY and U.S. Air Force complete, I guess, training. I didn't even see what the exact piece was. Complete electric training, and there's an electronic complete maintenance and training, something to that effect. But JOBY has a lot of these little check boxes that need to be checked in order to finally be able to operate, right? And I think it's getting close to fruition. And once that happens, I think it really starts to take off. And last but not least, Peloton. Disappointing day yesterday. Hopefully, you can find some footing here today and start to get back over the 10s, and then that 1040 handle. That's the big spot. And that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.